This is Laura Morris, and this is my final science project video. In the nature of science, it includes 3 parts: the human endeavor, evidence, and the ability to recreate. The evidence in my bulbs and batteries lesson was the information gathered about the placement of the bulbs, battery, and wires through the experiment. The recreation was when the students recreated their arrangement to assist other students. The evidence in the fossilized bones lesson was presented to them in the book that included how bones became fossils. They recreated the timeline through trial and error to see if it was correct. For both of these lessons, the students were in the concrete operational stage and should be able to understand the material that is presented to them in a concrete form. The students at this stage were able to understand both of the lessons. For bulbs and batteries, the students were able to test how to light up 2 bulbs with 1 battery. For bones, the students were able to organize a timeline for how fossils were created. For these lessons, I used several facts. The first fact that I used was fist to 5. It was used in both of the lessons for a quick gauge of how the students were doing. They are comfortable with this because it's often used to check comprehension during their other lessons. Other facts that were used were the exit slips, and I used to think, but now I know. The exit slips were used during my bulbs and batteries lesson because the lesson had to take place over 2 class periods. These formative assessments allowed me to understand what the students knew or were confused about, so I was able to formulate the next topic based on what the students needed. The students' reaction to both of these lessons were good. Both lessons were continuations of topics they had already begun to cover. For electricity, they had already done single bulb circuits before we continued to multi-bulb circuits. This made the transition easier, and I think the students were excited that the lesson had more than their usual science lessons. It was difficult to get a good idea of the reaction for the fossilized lesson because the students were antsy from test prep. However, the students who were actively participating seemed interested and became upset when other students caused me to stop the lesson. Looking back at both of these lessons, I feel that I grew quite a bit. Never before had I taught a science lesson and truly understood what it took to implement one. From the first lesson, I learned how important it is to tell the students all of the instructions prior to them getting any materials. For the fossilized bones lesson, I wish I had had more time for the lesson. I wasn't able to do very much because of the time constraint and the day of the lesson. The students were unruly because of test prep. This final slide is just to show you exactly where I got all of the pictures that have appeared throughout my project.